They are kids with autism, considered to be mentally retarded, locked in their own world, unable to communicate or even think for themselves. That was the prevailing view until now.
96 plus 2 is 89 or 98. Pick up 98.
Tonight, you'll meet the people who are behind what may be a breakthrough in autism and watch the remarkable transformation of autistic children who started to communicate for the first time after years of silence.
Tell me.
It seemed like I was seeing the kid that had disappeared.
Keep going, I know what you mean, but finish it up.
I was like a kid in a candy shop. I didn't know where to start. You know, what's your favorite color? What do you want to be when you grow up? I mean, you know, all the questions you ask a child over years.
It is a flower, and that's a bulb.
While statistics have been showing a significant rise in children born with autism, an unexpected breakthrough may have happened. It's happened quietly with just a handful of children, but it could have profound implications for nearly 500,000 children in the U.S. alone. They are kids with autism, kids many presume are mentally retarded or locked in their own world, unable to communicate or even to think for themselves. That was the prevailing view of autism until now. Tonight you'll meet the remarkable people who are breaking the silence of autism, a silence that led one couple on a desperate search for a cure.
It's like sometime between your baby's first and second birthday, somebody sneaks into your house late at night and they steal his mind and his personality and they leave his body behind.
For Hollywood producer John Shestak and his wife Portia Iversen, it was like something from a horror film.
Hi, Dove.
Like most children with autism, their son Dove appeared to be developing normally.
Ow!
A happy baby, learning to speak.
Hello!
Then, at around 18 months, he lost the few words he had, stopped answering to his name, and disappeared into the frightening world of autism.
I felt so helpless to help him, and yet every minute, every day, I saw him getting further and further out of my grasp, and there was no expert out there to stop it.
Dove, say hi, it's your birthday.
Although there are varying degrees of autism, John and Portia were told their son had the most severe form. They were told he would never speak and probably was mentally retarded. Doctors said there was nothing Portia and John could do for him except give him constant care and get on with their lives. Now, age 10, the only sounds Dove makes are unintelligible. His behavior is filled with uncontrollable movements called stimming or self-stimulation.
People don't want to do stuff with you out here if all you want to do is stim, okay?
How frustrated were you?
The worst times, you know, were when he was in pain of some kind and we couldn't figure out, you know, was it a toothache, was it a stomach ache, did he have appendicitis, did he break a bone, and he couldn't tell us.
That's pretty helpless, and everything in you was saying, like, you gotta help them, fix them, make them feel better, and you don't even know where to start.
We wait for the feds to sort of actually make it.
Portia and John were told there was no cure and that there were very few scientists even doing autism research. So they formed a research foundation called CAN, Cure Autism Now.
That's a huge amount of work.
In just 7 years, they've raised close to $20 million, making CAN the largest private supporter of autism research in the country. But their biggest breakthrough didn't come in the lab. It came from a boy their foundation brought over from India, a boy who seemed very much like their own son, but with some dramatic differences. This child is challenging every assumption about autism, turning the world of Portia and John and thousands of other parents like them upside down. His name is Tito Mukhopadhyay, seen here when he was 10. Like Dove, he's severely autistic. He too is almost mute and has little control over his body. Now 14, Tito still exhibits all the same symptoms of autism, but he's doing what doctors, researchers, and most parents of autistic children once thought impossible. He has learned to write eloquently and independently about what it's like to be trapped in an autistic body.
I was able to ask Tito things I always wanted to ask my own son, Dove. Why do you flap? Why do you rock? Why can't you look in my eyes? You know, and Tito could answer all these questions.
What do you think the biggest misperception is that people have of people with autism?
So,
what we are seeing in Tito is unprecedented. By definition, people with severe autism have trouble with language, a notion that Tito shatters every time he puts pen to paper. That they don't have any understanding? Any understanding of what? Of anything. When you first met Tito, were you skeptical?
The nature of a scientist is to be skeptical. So I was certainly surprised when I met him to see the very compelling evidence that he was for real.
Dr. Michael Merzenich has been studying Tito for more than a year. A neuroscientist at the University of California, San Francisco, he says Tito is not only authentic, but miraculous.
There can be little question in the writing behavior of Tito that he's providing the answers and that the answers are coming from his brain.
If Tito seems a miracle of autism, this is the miracle worker, his mother Soma, who gave up a career in chemistry to devote her life to teaching her son, even though doctors in India said he would never be able to learn.
At first they told us he was mentally retarded because he looked that, because he wasn't doing anything. He wasn't doing what his age level, a 3-year-old child should do. So he did not respond, he did not do anything.
Were you told how to teach him?
No.
What were you told?
To keep him busy. There, come. Run.
And she's been keeping him busy ever since.
Find Pershing square over here. Here. If you don't look, where is it?
As a young child, she noticed he was staring at calendars, so she started teaching him numbers and letters.
What are the factors of 6? Say the probably times.
When he wouldn't hold a pencil, she used a rubber band to tie one to his finger and taught him to draw lines and eventually to write.
No, why is it coming down the line?
If her method looks simple, just ask parents of other severely autistic children.
Sit.
They'll tell you that at one time or another, they too tried to get their child to type or communicate with no success. But Soma's method requires tenacity.
Write the F properly. Write it again. Write it again. No one will be able to read that.
For the past 11 years, this tireless taskmaster has spent every waking moment talking and teaching.
Hey, now look at this. Oh, look at that.
Constantly prodding
You're not even looking.
to keep Tito stimulated
We're going to put our names over here. How will that look?
and his mind on track.
Look at that. No, not like that.
What if you slacked off? What would happen, do you think?
No, I did not, so I don't
So
know.
you don't even
I can't
know.
even imagine myself doing that, yeah.
Her determination and her assumptions about Tito may have made all the
There's
difference.
nothing? Where?
She never doubted that he could learn,
1, 2, 3, no.
so she fed him a healthy diet of knowledge, from Shakespeare to geometry to music. Tito, without your mother pushing you, how would your life have been different?
I would have been of I would have been a vegetable.
I would have been a vegetable? So it's a good thing that she pushed.
Yes.
Yes. He said he'd be a vegetable.
I think that's probably pretty accurate.
Though Tito seems to have escaped that fate through his writing, he remains severely autistic. He can't even pick up the pad and pencil to write without his mother's constant prodding and urging.
Right.
But when Tito does write, it is with astonishing insight, especially for a boy just 14 years old. He's written hundreds of poems, including this one, which we watched him write from beginning to end.
I have fancied a little dream, and the world is left unseen. With the light of your eyes, through the darkness of the night, I have held that little dream, beyond my world, beyond all scenes.
Tito is a beautiful example of the possible. Here we have a boy that, largely through the empirical interaction of this boy with his mother, a way has been found into his ability, into his spirit.
Do you think that Tito is just one in a million?
I think there could be thousands of, maybe tens of thousands of Titos out there.
Scientists will soon find out if that's true. For the past year, Soma's been testing her homegrown methods on a small group of children at the Carousel School in Los Angeles. the school attended by John and Portia's son, Dove.
Here, Dove.
Like Tito, these 9 and 10-year-olds are severely autistic. Few can speak, and until recently, teachers had no idea if anything was actually getting through.
Who were the Native Americans there at the time?
Now they know.
Yes.
In the space of a year, kids who were being taught on a kindergarten level are now being taught math, social studies, and science like 4th graders.
And?
I had honestly never seen anything like this in my life.
Karen Spratt was their teacher. She says she was skeptical when Soma first came to the school.
Soma did everything that I was told not to do, kind of, as a teacher. So, for instance, she talked constantly.
The sun rises in the east or north? Pick up.
And that's the exact opposite of everything that you had been taught?
It is. In my training, it was that you give basic directions and wait for a response, and not to verbalize too much, because it could be distracting.
If 26 plus 2 is 38...
Instead of being distracting, Soma's rapid prompting method, as she calls it, seems to keep the children's attention focused long enough for them to communicate.
Pick up 98, good.
She ignores their erratic movements and wandering eyes and focuses instead on the mind locked inside.
Straight line or the lines of longitude? No, it is the line of longitude. Now tell me.
Did you ever second guess your approach? Ever think, maybe this isn't right?
No, no. I'm always sure of myself, what I'm doing.
Why?
Because it works. It works.
And she offers some astonishing proof.
Tell me, what do you like best?
Dove Shestak was one of her first students, since it was his parents, Portia and John, whose foundation brought Soma to the United States. But they never expected this.
Math, yes? You like math. We can do some math over here to show off. Then, 20 minus 4 what? 1 and?
His parents were astonished. From a boy who 6 weeks earlier couldn't even tie his shoes, suddenly came full sentences, complex thoughts, and words spelled correctly.
It is a flower, and that's a bulb.
The best way I can put this is, it seemed like I was seeing the kid that had disappeared 7 years before. And suddenly, it wasn't just the one word or gesture I was able to get, it was whole sentences and ideas.
Keep going, I know what you mean, but finish it up.
I was like a kid in a candy shop. I didn't know where to start. What's your favorite color? What do you want to be when you grow up? I mean, all the questions you asked a child over years. Every day there was whole new sets of things I was finding out.
Hey, Dove, tell me, why do you like math so much?
They learned that Dove is interested in religion and history and is a surprisingly good mathematician.
Why? It's easy.
We asked Dove how he had learned so much when no one had formally taught him.
L, I, come on, go ahead, come on.
He told us that all those years when people thought he was lost in his own world, he was actually listening to everything around him. You learn to spell and you learn to do math. Although Soma's method has not been studied scientifically, Mike Merzenich is one of many researchers who think it should be taken seriously.
I think it's almost certain that this method can be used with many, many autistic children. And the initial indication from these studies in Los Angeles is that it might apply even to the substantial majority of these children.
That they might be helped by this method, by someone prodding them and telling them, think, do, act.
Exactly.
Scientists can't help but wonder what other secrets Tito, Dove, and others like them still hold. Are you happier now?
Why?
But one thing is certain. The ability to communicate has had a profound effect on Dove's life. Yes. He's happier now, and you don't have to be a scientist to understand why.
S.
I can tell others my feelings. That's why you're happy.
Log on to cbsnews.com to learn about autism and the ways to get help. 60 Minutes 2 continues in a moment.
The chief weapons inspector says just this morning that he's headed to Baghdad and the situation is dangerous. They have to disarm. Also still ahead, we're going to begin an important three-part series on autism. Numbers are soaring, a four-fold increase Dr. Tim Johnson will have a report on this.
Coming up in this half hour, we want to tell everybody we have an important three-part series beginning. It is on one of the most devastating problems any family ever faces, autism. As we keep reading, the numbers are soaring up 4 times, and Dr. Timothy Johnson is going to be here to begin our reports this morning as we try to figure out why and what is being done to help. Thanks, Tony. Well, in this morning's Dr. Tim on Call, autism. 20 years ago, few of us had heard of it, and now it seems everyone knows a child who suffers from the mysterious disease. In California, for example, the number of cases of autism has jumped a staggering 273% in the last decade. And this morning, we're going to begin an important 3-part series called Unlocking the Mystery. And here with us is our medical editor, Dr. Tim Johnson. Tim?
As you know, Diane, the theories about what causes autism have ranged from childhood vaccines to delayed development in utero. In fact, no one knows for sure, but the numbers are alarming. 10 years ago, 1 child in 10,000 was diagnosed with this condition. That number has now fallen to 1 in 500. Imagine your child locked behind a wall of his own words, helpless to communicate, unable to look into your eyes, and frantic with odd behaviors fueled by frustration. This is the reality for parents of children with autism. 500,000 children in the United States are currently diagnosed with autism, for which there is no known cause or cure, and the numbers are inexplicably growing. In 1992, there were 250,000 cases of autism diagnosed in the U.S. In 2002, that number nearly doubled, rising to 425,000.
If you ask 100 specialists about what could contribute to the increase, you'd get at least 30 or 40 answers. And it just demonstrates the state of confusion in contemporary science and medicine that relates to this condition.
But as the experts debate, at the heart of it all are the children. Half or more of those afflicted with autism will never speak, leaving desperate parents to wonder if deep inside is a child they will ever know. But thanks to one unusual little boy from India, a boy named Tito, some parents are getting a rare and cherished glimpse into the isolated world of autism. Deep in the heart of India, in a town called Bangalore, the unimaginable was taking place. Tito, an 11-year-old severely autistic boy, was writing poetry, defying expectation. His poetry and his language skills prove that despite his odd behavior, his cognitive mind was alive. With the help of my imagination, I can go to places that do not exist, and they are like beautiful dreams. But it is a world full of improbability, racing toward uncertainty. Tito's mother, Soma, had somehow found a way to communicate with her autistic son. She forced him to focus by gently prodding him, sometimes raising her voice to keep him on track. And Tito responded, first by pointing and then slowly by writing out sentences that would grow into elegant observations about life as a child locked in the body of an autistic.
I act different.
The thoughts are bigger than I can express. Every move that I make shows how trapped I feel under the continuous happenings. Halfway across the world in Los Angeles, another mother, Portia Iversen, was doing everything she could to give her son, Dove, a chance. Like Tito, Dove was severely autistic. But Portia had refused to accept her son's fate and had started a foundation which would fund research into the condition that ruled Dove's life. And it was this foundation that would bring Soma and Tito to the United States. World-renowned experts wanted to study him.
He represents a wonderful possibility. There might be thousands of children like him.
But during Soma and Tito's visit, something else, something unexpected happened. Soma taught Dove the method she used with Tito, teaching him to focus, point, and spell out entire sentences.
Every day was a new excitement, making up for all these years of, what do you want to be when you grow up? What's your favorite subject? In school, do you like school? What's your favorite color? How do you like having brothers and sisters?
So we need to look at this strategy more widely and determine whether or not it is a valid strategy for a large number of children that's still unresolved. But the initial observations are extremely hopeful.
How have things changed now that you can communicate?
Come on, touch. I. Come on, touch. A. Come on, touch. Touch, touch, touch.
Letter by letter, Doe's answer is revealed.
O. Go ahead, come on. O. And. D. I'm understood, yes.
I am understood.
Wow. Tim, is this something, how do we know how many kids could benefit from this?
We don't. It's been done with these two, and now she's teaching in a school setting, 9 others, very early, very small numbers. We have to be extremely cautious not to raise false hope. On the other hand, given that we have no predictably effective treatments, we need to be open to these approaches as long as they are carefully monitored and studied before we start promoting them to the general public.
I want to take you back to vaccines for a moment, because all the new mothers I know in my life are debating whether to give vaccines, terrified that there is a connection.
And understandably so, because most cases of autism are diagnosed around 18 months of age. At the same time, they're getting a lot of childhood vaccinations. Easy to connect the two in one's emotional mind. In fact, we now have what I think is a definitive study of over 500,000 kids showing no difference in the incidence of autism in those who get vaccinated versus those who do not. So I do not believe it is a factor.
So go ahead with vaccines.
The benefits outweigh the risks, absolutely.
All right, Tim. Well, we'll have more tomorrow, as we told you, about this extremely provocative and tragic disease. And coming up next, we're going to tell you a little bit about what to do if you're among those looking for work in these tough times. Grab a pen and paper. There are jobs out there, and we're going to tell you where they are.